Welcome to the Sharperlight installation video. This video goes through the steps to install Sharperlight for both an application server and remote connection setups. You can follow the video along with the installation guide PDF available on the Sharperlight website. In this video, we'll cover the prerequisites to go through before installing Sharperlight, setups involved and where to find the .msi installer, creating the system database and connecting to it through Sharperlight, installing a data model and where to download them, testing your setup in Query Builder and where to change user account settings, setting up a service as an application server, and remote connections to the application server. Before you install your environment, please note that there are different setups. We'll quickly go through the types. An application server is always necessary. This is where everything is hosted. Developer setup has a remote connection to the application server and allows access for most Sharperlight functionality, and the client-only setup limits the user to mainly Excel add-in access, Query Builder, and publish reports. Web users require no installation on their end, as they simply view established reports through a web browser. The application server and developer setups require .NET 4.6.1 framework or higher, Windows 7 with Service Pack 1 or higher, Windows Server 2008 R2 or higher. For the application server, you will also require Microsoft SQL Server and the relevant database permissions for any database we will interact with. For the Sharperlight Excel add-in, any version higher than 2007 is compatible. Let's begin by downloading the .msi file to install Sharperlight. Go to the Sharperlight webpage and in the Resources tab, go to Current Builds. In the list, you can download the latest version of Sharperlight, making sure you choose the appropriate version based on your environment being 32 or 64-bit. Open the .msi file you just downloaded and the setup wizard should appear. Click on Next and then read through the end user license agreement before accepting the terms and then click on Next. Now we choose one of the three setup types. Client only is typically for users only interested in the Excel add-in. Custom setup has access to all the functionality and tools, but lets you opt out of options. Complete setup is what we recommend for application servers and developer setups. It gives all available functionality and tools. You can refer back to the installation guide PDF if you need more information about which setup you should choose. After you have selected your setup type, click on Install, and once it finishes, click on Finish to close the setup wizard. Next, we want to create a system database for Sharperlight. This must be created in Microsoft SQL Server 2008 R2 or higher. For our example, we are going to open Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio 18 and create a new database. The system database can have any name, but we recommend naming it Sharperlight. We now have our system database, but we need to set up Sharperlight to point to it. Since we have already installed Sharperlight, let's go to the Start menu and create a shortcut for ourselves. Type Applications menu and either create a shortcut or pin it to your taskbar for convenience. Opening the Applications menu, we see a list of all the applications available in Sharperlight. We want to click on Client Setup. Here we can define our local connections, one of which is to the system database, which we just created. There are different connection types, but we recommend using database authentication for your system database as it simplifies the management for user access. Selecting database authentication, we have to define our connection details. For server name, put the name of your server in here. Initial catalog is where you match the database name, so Sharperlight for our system database. Then make sure you have a valid user account with username and password. Once you have filled in all the details, you can click on Test to test your connection. You should see a prompt appear asking you if you want to install the default tables into the system database. Click on Yes. You'll also see whether your test connection was successful. After you're done, click on OK to close the client setup. Next, we want to install a data model. Go back to your web browser and now on the Sharperlight Pages Resource tab, go to Data Models. Here is a list of all data models available. For any data model you are after, click its folder and you should then be able to download the data model file. For this example, we will show Business Central and which file to download, and the same for SAP Business One. If you don't have a data model in mind, but would like to install a data model that does not require a license, you can go to the Resource tab and select Manuals and Guides. From here, you can click on the Sample Demo Data folder and download the sampleaccounting.zip. The zip file contains an unlicensed demo data model and also a demo database. Now that we have our data model file downloaded, open the Sharperlight Applications menu. We want to open the data model installer. The data model installer lets us delete, update, and add data models. Click on the Add button and then select your data model file you previously downloaded. This is what a data model file looks like for SAP and Business Central data models. For our example, we will install the accounting data model, which is a demo data model. Click Open and the data model is now added to the list in the data model installer. Click Finish to close the installer. Open the Applications menu again. We want to go to Client Setup. Just like how we did with our connection details for our system database, we want to define our connection details for our data model. For the sample accounting data model, the initial catalog should be set to Accounting, as that is the name of the sample accounting data database. When our connection details are complete, click on Test to see if you can successfully connect to your database. So far, we have installed Sharperlight, a data model, and set up the connection details to point to the relevant database. It is good practice to then use Query Builder to test the setup for yourself. Through the Applications menu, you can open Query Builder. As no other user accounts have been changed yet, you can log in using the guest account, which by default has no password set, as you have only just recently installed Sharperlight. Click Login. Sharperlight's Query Builder will open, where we can define a query to run using our data model. As we only want to test, just ensure that you have your data model selected, so for our example, sample accounting data, and then open the lookup for table to select any table to query against. After selecting a table, double click on some outputs and then click on Preview, where you should see data return if everything has been set up correctly. After a fresh install of Sharperlight, both the admin and guest accounts will have no password set. It is good practice to set passwords for them, or at the minimum for the admin account. Through the Applications menu, open Site Setup. Site Setup requires an admin account to access, so use the admin account but with no password and then press Login. Here we have the Site Setup window open, and we can update user accounts in the Users folder and also update user groups in the User Groups folder. Expand the folders to see all users. You can do the same for user groups. As we want to place a password on the admin account, click on Admin, and its user details will appear on the right side. Simply type in a password for your admin account, and when you are done, you can hit Close. Next, we will show the basics on setting up your Sharperlight service, which is a self-contained web service that combines a RESTful web service and a gateway API for remote desktop clients to access the application server's data models, publish reports, and more. Through the Application menu, open up Client Setup. Expand on Services, and you should see 3 default templates to start from. Select one and you'll see all the properties and details for the remote data model service on the right. If the service is disabled, double click on Enable to switch between true and false, with true enabling the connection. Press OK to save and close, then go to the Applications menu again. There are 2 ways to start your Sharperlight service, manually and with Microsoft Services. First, we'll show how to manually do it through Sharperlight. Click on Service, and this will start the Sharperlight service and also give details about the service. Also included is a link that you can click that directs you to the index page. Click on this link and use your login. We will use the guest account for our example. Then we will see the index page in the web. Let's stop the Sharperlight server so we can demonstrate the next method. Open Microsoft Services application and you can scroll down to find Sharperlight. This is the Sharperlight service. We recommend you go into its properties and change its startup type to automatic or automatic delayed. You can also define which user account is used to start the service. Right-clicking on the Sharperlight service, you can also see options to start, stop, and restart the service. Click on Start and we'll refresh our index page to see if the service is indeed back on. After you have a service online, you can remote connect to the service on other devices. To do this, start the device with Sharperlight already installed. For this example, we are on another setup than earlier, and will be pointing to the service we defined just before. Through the Applications menu, open Client Setup. Expand on Remote Connections and you will see 3 default templates for remote connections. Select one of the templates, and the connection details will appear on the right side. Here we simply define our connection details to point to the service. Once you've input all your connection details, you can click on Test. If successful, you'll see a prompt appear letting you know the connection is successful and maybe a note about version differences. Click OK and then you should see another prompt asking you if you would like to perform a communication performance test. You don't have to click on yes, but we will for this example. The next window shows our connection performance. Click OK again. This window will appear if your remote connections have been left disabled and lets you automatically enable them. As we want to use a remote connection, we will click yes. The next window will ask to disable local connections, as you should only have one type of connection enabled at once. Click yes to disable your local connections. You can save and close by clicking OK in Client Setup. Now we can test our remote connection. Through the Application menu, open Publisher. This opens the list of all saved published reports. The server requires a login. We can use the guest account for Publisher here. The Publisher window will now appear. On the service, reports and an additional data model were installed and imported to show what a more established environment looks like. For our example, we'll filter by using the Find tool to look at the report called Home Main. Right-click on a published report and you can choose to View Report, which will open the report up in the web. From here we can see that not only do we have access to the server's list of published reports, but we can also view the reports in the web. With a remote connection, you can also use the Excel add-in. Open Excel and you should see the Sharperlight Excel ribbon. We can create a simple table report. Begin by creating some filters to use. As for this example, we'll be querying against the sample accounting database and its journal line table. Let's create cells for accounts and periods. We can then log in through the Sharperlight ribbon. If your client setup details are correct, you should be able to log in. For our example, we'll use the guest login again. Now, after selecting a cell to output, click on the Formula Table button. Here we'll define a query pointing to the journal line table. The query will output accounts and the amount. And we can actually set our filter values from cells in the Excel sheet. Once you are done, click OK and name your query. You should then see the query data output in your Excel sheet. This concludes the video on how to install Sharperlight. For more information, in-depth explanations and troubleshooting, please refer back to the Sharperlight installation PDF.